All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. It is Sunday, March 3rd. We got a decent-sized NBA slate to dive into in today's video. Like we always do, we're going to go through each and every one of these games. I'm going to give you my lean on the spread. I'll give you my lean on the total. We'll talk about any other plays, like player props that we like within the games as well. But as always, all of my final plays, if you do want to fade me and do the opposite of those picks, those plays are going to live in the pinned comments, so keep an eye out for those. Last night was a fadeable night. The win streak comes to an end. We had a bunch of days in a row of profit, and last night we kind of take one right on the chin there. Hawks money line looked good in the first half, blew it in the second. Jabari Smith Jr.'s never really got into that rebounding groove. The Lakers money line, another game that kind of looked good for somewhat of that game, and then Denver's like, we're the better team. And then the only one that we hit was the Rockets Suns under 234, which is kind of a no sweat win there, but a 1-3 night. Not the best, and what's also not the best is our ride of the day drought continues here. Coming in from Official J, Anthony Simons under 33.5 PRA. The data looked good. The matchup looked good. He does not come through there. Ends up, I think it was like 37-7, something like that. He went over 33.5 PRA. If you guys don't know what the ride of the day is, all you got to do is drop a banger of a play in the comments. I'm jumping on board with one person's pick, giving you a shout out in the next video, win or loss. Also, shouting you out over on my Instagram at evpicks with a Z, and on my Twitter at evguyboston. All those will be rotating through here throughout the show. But yeah, guys, drop your ride of the days. Shout out to Jay for trying. I like this one, just did not come through here. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. We're cruising almost at 60K subscribers, which you cannot thank you guys enough. Let's change up the vibes. Let's pump in some damn crowd noise for all the support you guys have been giving as of late. Appreciate the absolute heck out of it. But let's go ahead and without further ado, jump into game number one here. We got Dallas taking on the Sixers. Dallas right now 8-point favorites total, sitting at 237. I kind of want to start with a total in this one, actually. I'm not minding the under. So I know that you're looking at this being like, wow, Dallas and an under game, like that doesn't really make much sense, right? But Dallas's offense hasn't been as consistent as you'd like as of late. They only have one game that's over 120 in their last 4 games, 2 in their last 5. One of those is a 123 game. I don't necessarily see them needing to or being able to score a crazy amount, coming into this game. This is a Philly defense that's meh, but they've played better at home this season in terms of where they rank points against 12th, so 12th best, so 12th fewest points when at home this season. Defensive efficiency wise, they're also a better defensive team than Dallas. So I'm hoping that Philly's defense kinda, sorta, in some way, slows Dallas down. A Dallas team that's been slowed down and kind of okay with it. Like this Dallas team, as they're healthy, as they're playing with one another, I do think that they're able to be like, okay, you know what? Yeah, let's play the half-court game and do this thing. And we know that Philly's offense really has not been cooking. Now, you could say, well, look at their last game, 121 against Charlotte, right? Before that, against any decent teams here, Boston, 99. Against Milwaukee, 98. Against Cleveland, 104. First game after the All-Star break against New York, 96. Like, this team isn't scoring a lot of points. They're not playing at the same efficiency or pace without Embiid. So I think I'm going to lean towards the under in this spot as my main play. I'm hoping that their sort of pace can bring Dallas down just a little bit and make this game, end in the early 230s. In terms of a side pick here, kept it for second because it's not my favorite spot, but I just have trouble leaning towards the Pelicans without Embiid because it's like you don't have the shiny rock or whatever it is, you know what I mean? So I'm going to lean Dallas. I don't think that becomes a final play, but that is where my head is at. I just can't fully trust the Sixers, and it's like, yeah, well, they won their last game against Charlotte. Can't give too much weight into that. In terms of player props, I do have a couple that I like, both on the same player. We're looking at Buddy Hield again. I like his over 3.5 assists. He's hit this in 8 of his 9 games as a Sixer. He has hit 4 a couple times, so he's just barely getting this. But this is a Dallas team that's allowing plenty of assists to all positions, shooting guards included, which Buddy Hield is. In their last 7 games, Dallas allowing the 5th most assists to the shooting guard position. Buddy Hield getting the start start at shooting guard. I also don't mind his threes, over 2.5. Now, I want the volume to be there, but this is a Dallas team that's not like they're incredibly great against the three ball, and Buddy Hield has been good to this number. Again, in 9 games with Philly, he's only missed this number once, so definitely something to consider there. And I know, it's like, well, what if you're looking for other guys that aren't Buddy Hield? It's like, well, nothing jumps off the page, as I love to say, other than those plays. But keep an eye on the pinned comment to see if anything changes. Follow me again on Instagram at EvPicks, also on Twitter at EvGuyBoston, because we're posting our final plays there as well as we enter them. All right. Next up, we have the Celtics taking on the Warriors here. Celtics right now 11-point favorites at home. Total sitting at 230 in this one. In terms of injuries, Steph Curry is listed as questionable. I assume he plays. It seems like a pretty big game in a sense. I know it's, East versus West, so maybe it doesn't matter all that much, but it is Celtics Warriors, right? A couple finals ago meeting. Then we also have Podziemski on the Warriors side of things as a game time decision. Kristaps Porzingis on the Celtics side of things listed as a game time decision. So plenty to keep an eye on injury-wise here, which is unfortunate because this is an afternoon game at 3 o'clock Eastern time or 3:30 Eastern time, so it's kind of like, all right, well, we better monitor this and hope, we get our injury reports soon enough. We want to play some plays in this game. In terms of a spread pick, yeah, I guess you guys will keep calling me a Celtics fan or a biased Celtics fan. I like the Celtics minus 11. They've been covering the number. They're playing some of the best basketball of the season, which is crazy to say because they've been good. But yeah, in their last 10-0 straight up, 6-3-1 against the spread. When they're at home this season, they're covering plenty of games. Now, the only counter you can make there is, well, the Warriors actually cover more games when they're on the road this year. So, okay, I'll give you that, fine. But I just think that the Celtics team is like a freight train right now. It doesn't mean that I'm looking at this saying, okay, I'm going to play this and go heavy on it. I might not even make this a final play, but it just doesn't seem, I don't care if it's the Warriors or anybody really, it just doesn't seem like it's in the cards right now to bet against the Celtics, if that makes sense. So in terms of leans, I look at them. Now, from a total perspective, this is a tough one, and I'm sure I could get convinced the opposite here. I think that this is a game that's going to have a lot of points in it. Both these teams, when they play, obviously we've seen plenty of different types of games, but back in December this year was the only game that we have to go off of. This game went to OT, 132-126. I could see this being some sort of a high-scoring game again. Now, I think the Celtics run away with it a little bit more, and it's not that close, aka my lean towards Celtics minus 11, but the Celtics offense has been cruising as of late. In their last 5 games here, when it comes to points per, I just had it up, let me find it. When it comes to points per here, they're 4th in the NBA with averaging 121 points per game. Now, the Warriors are actually in the bottom half of the league when it comes to defense in their last 5 games. So I'm not really scared of the Celtics scoring the ball, right? And then even from the Celtics perspective, yes, they're a good defense, but the Warriors, a top 6 team in the league in terms of points per game over their last 5. I think both these teams have what it takes offensively to put up some points here. And you're telling me a floor of 115 a piece if we were to 50-50 the weight? Yeah, I think that this one goes over. The issue is that, you have a 11-point spread here, and it's kind of like, that looks like it might read blowout for some reason, right? Because Steph Curry, that 11-point spread tell me Steph isn't playing, which makes me like the Celtics minus 11 more, but makes me like the over slightly less. In terms of player props here, if Steph Curry does play, especially if he, is, I guess, a little hobbled with the knee, I actually wouldn't mind taking a peek at his over 8.5 rebounds plus assists. Also, don't hate his over 4.5 assists. We could look at both of those there. He's hit that in 3 straight times, both of those numbers, 4.5 assists and 8.5 rebounds plus assists against the Celtics here, dating back to last season. And again, if he's a little hobbled, the Celtics are going to throw a lot at him. He's not going to be able to do his shiftiness stuff, and maybe he'll start delegating and passing a little bit more. On the season, too, it helps that the Celtics are allowing the 3rd most rebounds to the opposing point guard on the entire season. That's kind of why I want to include this. This pick started as assists. That's why I wanted to kind of include the over 8.5 rebounds plus assists there. I also don't mind looking at Jason Tatum's over an assist. It's 5.5 right now. He's hit it in 7 of his last 5. He didn't hit it last game against Dallas, but in his last 10 here, he has not had one game where he doesn't hit it and does not bounce back with hitting it. So I could see that happening. Last 2 games as well against Golden State, he had 6 assists and 7 assists. So the one game this season, he had 7 assists. I don't hate that. Warriors also allowing the 7th most assists to the power forward position, where Tatum gets the start over the season, actually. And speaking of Jason Tatum, before we get to the rest of the slate, I do want to tell you guys about Sleeper. You got to go try this app, guys. They have a free Jason Tatum square right now, over 0.5 points. What you do on Sleeper is pair 2 to 8 player props in a slip. The more you win, the more you get paid out. And what I love about Sleeper is the fact that each and every pick has its own dynamic multiplier, meaning every payout you get is different. They don't follow a fixed payout structure. Go ahead and try it out, guys. You can use the link in the pinned comment. You're going to get your first deposit doubled. It's an absolute no-brainer. You could put it into up to $500 and they will double that. You'll have an account of $1,000. $1,000 is actually crazy. Or you can go in a normal route, right? Put in $50, they'll give you 50. You have a new account balance of 100. Whatever you want to put in, they will double. So if Sleeper is legal in your state, make sure to go and check it out. Quit sleeping on it. It's an awesome DFS pick'em app. Head over there right now. Again, that link in the pinned comment. Now let's get back to the games here. Next up, we have Minnesota taking on the Clippers here. Minnesota at home. This 2 an afternoon game, 3:30 Eastern time. Minnesota right now laying a point at home. Total sitting at 221. This is a tough one. I think this should be a good game, obviously. I'm going to go with... this might not make sense, but I think that the Clippers have the upper hand here just based on what we're seeing against the spread. This Minnesota team has been winning games, but their strength of schedule really has not been it. Their last 3 out of 4 games that they've won have been Brooklyn, San Antonio, Memphis. They lose to Sacramento. And then if we go back further, they lost to Milwaukee. Okay. And then they played Portland, and then we come down to a game here where they beat the Clippers in their own house. I think the Clippers are in a better spot where Minnesota hasn't really been battle tested as of late. When they are, they've been losing. Again, those losses to Milwaukee and Sacramento. Whereas the Clippers kind of are pining for a win here. Like, they haven't been playing good basketball, and they kind of have that revenge factor on the side. So I know it might not make sense. I'm not sounding the psycho alert alarm because obviously it's not that crazy. They're just +1 here, but I think the Clippers get the job done. Anthony Edwards also questionable in this one. He left last game, not due to injury, but to be there for the birth of his child. So we'll see if he plays in this one. If he doesn't play in this one, we obviously like the Clippers even more. But again, I'm kind of torn here. I could see the argument being made for Minnesota. Minnesota, obviously the better defensive team in this one. And the Clippers, not that they're a bad defense, but that starting 5 is really good defense, or even their 1 through 6 really good defense, right? But they don't always play the best team defense. So if they win this game, I'm probably relying on a little bit more of offense here. So I'm also going to lean towards the over 221 in this spot. And then surprisingly, as good of a game as I think this is going to be, I actually don't have any player props for you that I'm loving in this spot. So probably skipping out on player props today in this game. Next up, we have Orlando taking on Detroit right now. Orlando, big favorites in this one, -11 at home. Total sitting at 218.5. These two teams just played a little over a week ago here. Orlando wins that one 112 to 109. Now, they were cruising for a lot of that game, and then it came down to, I believe, a Paolo Banchero game winner, if I'm not mistaken, right? So it's a little weird that they come in as 11-point favorites again here. I'm going to trust the number and trust that the books know what they're doing in this one. Give me Orlando here minus the points. I think you can get it at 10.5 on MGM right now, so a little bit of value there. And then in terms of a total, 218.5. I'm going to lean towards the under. We saw 109 to 112 already, so that would, have gone over. But I do think that, Orlando, the reason that they're favored by so much is they should be able to smush this Detroit offense and play some good defense. So give me the under 218.5. Player prop that I considered here, don't know if it makes its way to being a final play, but it's actually going to look at beef stew. Isaiah Stewart over 5.5. I was going to say 14.5 rebounds. Over 5.5 rebounds. So he's hit this already 2 times in his last 2 meetings against Orlando. He hit it last game against Orlando as well. Yes, he's back recently, but he's playing a decent amount of minutes here. So I don't really mind taking a peek at his 31.3 minutes and saying, okay, yeah, just grab a rebound every, whatever. Like, I do think that this is a decent spot for him. On the season, when he plays 31 or more minutes, he's hit this in 86% of his games. If we drop it down a little bit, to 28, 26, 27, like he actually's hit it in plenty of games. When you go to 23 or more minutes, which he should play more than that, it goes down to 82%. So obviously the more minutes, the better. But I do think that Orlando, being a decent rebounding team, is going to say, all right, we're not going to let, Jalen Duren get a bunch of boards on our head or anything like that. So some of these boards should slip and fall to, Isaiah Stewart there. So I don't mind taking a peek at that. All right, we got Toronto laying 7 at the house against Charlotte here. Total sitting at 222.5. I'll sound the cycle alert alarm. I'll lean towards Charlotte plus the 7 points. This really just comes down to the fact that I don't want to trust Toronto here to lay in 7 points, especially with now no Scotty Barnes. Like, this is still just too high of a number. We have plenty of injuries to look at on the Charlotte side of things. Starters-wise, Brandon Miller is a game-time decision, but he's listed as probable. Martin, Williams, and Curry are all out, as is Ball. But nonetheless, guys, this is a Charlotte team that obviously they're not very good. They've lost plenty of games in a row. Yada, yada, yada. But Toronto, it's like, I know that they're better, but like, do they have that much to show for it to be 7-point favorites without one of their best players playing? In my brain, no. So give me Charlotte here plus the points. Total sitting at 222.5. I'll take the over here. I don't think either one of these teams is exceptionally great when it comes to defense. I don't think the pace supports this over, but I'm hoping that that lack of defense kind of come true. And I know people are like, oh, well, you know, Toronto plays a good defense. No, that's because you think of Toronto as a good defensive team. They really are not playing all that great defense. They've allowed the third most points over the last 3 games to their opponents. So the defense just isn't clicking right now. And then surprisingly, this isn't that great of a game. I don't have any player props in it. All right, we got Cleveland laying 6.5 points at home against the Knicks here. Total at 212.5. So this total is obviously super low. We have seen out of the last 10 games that these two teams have played against one another, not necessarily to this line, but just over, under in general, they've hit 9 unders and 1 over. So obviously when these two teams play, they obviously tick some sort of a box when it comes to an under with one another. So even though it's a super low number, I don't know if I make it a final play, but I'm leaning towards the under with that trend that is just absolutely too crazy. In the Knicks' last 10 games, they've hit 7 unders independently and Cleveland 6. So both teams are trending in an under direction as well. To this line, I guess it's a little bit different here. Like Cleveland, you know, to the 212.5 line, 8 of their last 10 games have gone over, and then 6 of their last 10 games for the Knicks have gone over as well. So recent trends independently don't really speak that under into existence, but obviously the trends with one another. In terms of spread, I got to lean Cleveland here. They're the better basketball team, even though they're not playing superb right now. They're not really covering, but you know, the Knicks aren't covering in a worse way. Knicks haven't covered. Knicks have lost 9 of their last 10 against the spread. They've lost 7 straight up, but 9 of their last 10 against the spread here. Just not doing anything to the number, which is tough to see. I know Randall and Anunoby still being out is a massive blow. On the injury side of things for Cleveland, you do have Donovan Mitchell listed as a game time decision. Everything we just said, if he gets ruled out, probably gets thrown out the window, and it's also preventing us from getting some Cavs player props on the board as of right now, too, because I think we're waiting that one out. So I don't have any major player props for you right now. I would consider looking at Evan Mobley. I think that it could be a decent matchup, but we don't have any lines for that now. So keep an eye on the pinned comment. We could have some emo, action down there. All right, we got San Antonio taking on the Pacers. Admittedly, this isn't my favorite spot. We did manage to get a few plays that we're leaning towards in this spot. So I know that we always get the comments like, you must hate the Pacers. I don't hate the Pacers. I just think that they get some weird numbers in a sense. Like them being 6.5 point favorites here, it really doesn't make all that much sense to me. Like they just haven't proved that they should be laying 6.5 points against this Spurs team. But I think it's more of like a knock on the Spurs as to where this number is. So I do get it. But in terms of a lean, like I'm not going to bet Pacers minus 6.5 against anybody. By default, I then lean towards the Spurs, but that's definitely something that does not become a final play. It's more of a passing up of the great opportunity of laying the Pacers minus 6.5. Now, you can make the argument, well, obviously the people that are making the books and the sports books out there, it's like they like this number for a reason, right? Like it's not like they just said, hey, what's a random number? No, they thought long and hard about this, released it. I think it opened up at 6.5 and it stayed there, so it's not like it's moving. So I guess there's an argument to be made there. I just can't get myself there. I could look at the under 243.5 though, which is really weird. I think that this is going to be a game in which both teams can allow plenty of in the point paint shots. The Spurs really bad as of late. The Pacers even worse. It's funny. The Pacers are one of the best teams at scoring in the paint right now, and then points allowed in the paint, they're one of the worst teams. I think 30th in terms of, dead last when it comes to this season. And then as of late, they're the second worst. And San Antonio is sitting at the 6th with it. So I like the under 243.5 because if there's a lot of paint points, We hope it's not totally in transition, which is obviously a possibility for both these teams, but there's a lot of paint points. It's tough to get to 245 with a bunch of twos. So that's the only thought process there. Again, it's not really my favorite game or anything like that. I would also consider Devin Vassell over 21.5 points. He likes the mid-range, and this is an Indiana team that at times struggles against covering that mid-range area. He's getting the start at the shooting guard position. They're in the bottom 10 in terms of preventing shooting guards from scoring the rock as well. Next up, we got Phoenix taking on OKC, and I do think that this would be an interesting sort of spread to break down had OKC not been on a back-to-back here. So I like Oklahoma City with a couple days rest coming into Phoenix and winning by 5.5 points. You can make the argument for Phoenix. They're going to probably win the rebounding war, better at covering the perimeter as of late. Like, there are bits and pieces that you can look at here, but, OKC overall, their offense is better. Their defense is better, both from an efficiency perspective and just points perspective. So I'm trusting OKC. This is a team that obviously has had its ups and downs this year. They just got through one of the ups, and let's hope that outright loss to San Antonio as 11-point favorites isn't the beginning of like a down. Like, they have a little bit of fire under them to get back to winning, because they did win and cover in 6 straight games prior to that. And the last time that these two teams met was back in November. They're only meeting the season. OKC in Phoenix again won 111-99. So I do think that there's a decent match up there as well for these two teams. Phoenix didn't have everybody playing that game. I believe Devin Booker missed that game, so obviously that's a big knock, but nonetheless, recent meeting, OKC won. I still like that trend to continue. I also don't mind taking a peek at the under here. I think both these teams are very good when it comes to transition defense, and whether or not they want to push the pace to make it a transition game, if it's hard to score in transition, it'll be hard to score in transition. You know what I mean? So I'm going to lean towards the under 234 here. This is also a Phoenix team that is on a back-to-back this season. When they're on back-to-backs, they've hit the under in 56% of games. So I like to see that there. Another thing, too, now that we look at percentages, with a rest advantage, OKC is covered in 62% of their games, whereas Phoenix is just 50-50 on back-to-back. So I like that even more for that 5.5-point spread. Player props in this spot, as good of a game as I think this is going to be, I kind of struggled to find some player props here. One that I would consider could be Chet Holmgren over 19.5 points plus assists. I don't want to mess with the rebounds here, right? But I do think that this is a spot in which he can make a couple threes. I think he had like 3 threes last time they played. Like, this is a good spot for him to kind of play on the perimeter. If Nurkic plays. Nurkic was doubtful last time I looked, but even still, this is a Phoenix team that will cramp the paint. I think Chet Holmgren can kind of have some success out there. Devin Booker also, we talked about Nurkic being doubtful here. Devin Booker also is questionable in this spot too, so make sure to keep an eye on that one there. But those might be from last game. You know what I mean? Like, when they're on a back-to-back, like, I've seen multiple sites without Nurkic even on the injury report, right? I've seen some sites have him as doubtful. It's like, all right, well, which one is it? So keep an eye on the injury report here, regardless that Chet Holmgren's prop for points and assists I like. I don't love the rebounds one if Nurkic plays. If he doesn't, it's kind of a toss-up in this spot. But guys, it's going to wrap it up for today's show. Hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you guys in the next one, all right? Peace out.